Hi everyone, my name is Erin Elizabeth Wernberg. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. Today we're talking about overcorrection and the pendulum of healing. Okay, so this is something that affects a lot of us. It's very normal, but usually, so as we grow on our healing journeys, we discover new things we need to unlearn, ways we didn't realize we weren't showing up for ourselves, and maybe in the best way, or simply just things we've outgrown. There's like this constant learning and unlearning. So we're getting new information, we're discovering which things work for us, which things don't work for us. There's this constant, if you're committed to soul growth, there's a lot of this back and forth and deciding, okay, this thing worked for me, this thing didn't work for me, this is something I want to keep doing, this is something I want to release, right? So that's a normal part of, growing on the soul level. And so what can happen within that, it's very healthy to want to correct our behavior or choose something different, or realize, oh, I didn't realize, I was acting in this way, but I know this other way is actually way more aligned with myself. Or I didn't even know that this was a thing I was doing and there's a name for it and I don't want to do it. I want to do this other thing instead. Okay, so like I said, it's healthy to want to correct our behavior and choose something different, but when the ego gets involved, and usually when it's something that we realize we didn't even know we were doing, that's when it can become like an overcorrection, and the pendulum can go from one side to like totally completely on the other. So it can be this like really extreme from one to the other. Right. So just imagine, let's say this is the one behavior you're doing and the pendulum's over here, and then you learn about something new, you have some new information. And so the pendulum goes like all the way over that way. It's an overcorrection. Okay. So this happens because usually once we learn this information, we're not aware of the pattern, or else we would have changed it or thought about it or reflected or dealt with it by now. But what can happen is, we find out this thing we're doing, and then the ego wants us to feel embarrassed or ashamed, or I should have known better, or, this is, wow, I can't believe I would do that. Or, it's the thing of once it awakens for you, once you realize it, it can be this energy of like, wow, that's so embarrassing, or like, I'm never going to let that happen again to me, or this is never going to be something I'm ever going to do ever again. Right. It can be this really, it comes from a place of feeling really self-righteous and really entitled, and just really like, wow, I can't believe that, and I should have done better, I should have known better, right? So it's kind of this, it's the ego wanting to still feel in control and still feel like, oh well, I didn't know, but now I know, and so now I'm gonna like make up for it and go like this. So it's just offering some kindness to yourself, and offering and realizing like, okay, maybe I thought I had to act that way before, but now I know I don't need to. But so when we get that feeling and we suddenly wake up or realize something, and it comes from a good place, right? It's totally life-changing. It's totally amazing. This is the thing I'm going to do. This is something I'm going to change. This is something that I know is so helpful for me, right? You get all excited, you get all these feelings, you get, all these ways that you're going to show up, and you feel so motivated and inspired. And it's like, displacing this giant ideal that you just learned of like, wow, now I know everything about everything and I'm ready to go and everything feels amazing, right? And so it comes from this good place. But when the ego gets involved and the ego gets in there, it again can cover up more of this feeling of like embarrassment, or I always knew this, I'm right, I knew, right? And so what happens is, then the ego then wants to take it and go this way completely, right? The truth is, you just didn't know better. The truth is, you were doing the best you could with what you had. The truth is, we all use the tools we use for the amount of time for our own reasons. It could be we didn't know better. It could be we weren't ready to let go. It could be, this was the best we could do at the time, right? So if you know that, you can just offer yourself some kindness, letting it go, not over investing in all of that. But an example of this, for example, and something you want to let go of, and just so I can contextualize a little bit more, right? So let's say, for example, you find out, suddenly you're like, wow, I didn't realize I had no boundaries in this one particular relationship, or in general, right? I didn't realize I had no boundaries. I didn't realize I wasn't showing up for myself at all. I didn't realize even what a boundary was, even maybe, or that I could have boundaries in this particular way, or, whatever it is. So just remember, recognizing, take it how it applies, take it how it resonates. If you're not going through this right now, I'm sure you've gone through it previously, but just, okay, let's take the boundaries examples, right? So let's say suddenly you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I didn't have like healthy boundaries or boundaries that honored myself in this particular relationship or all my relationships, right? And so suddenly the overcorrection, so that's this end, overcorrection, where the pendulum wants to go instead of the middle path, pendulum wants to go all the way over here, and you want to like have a boundary with everything. You want to control everything about boundaries. You want, you know, to make like a boundary contract that you write out with everyone in your life, and you say, this is my boundary, and if anyone crosses it once, I'm not going to be, you know, empathetic or considerate or think, you know, maybe why did they do that? I'm just going to say, you crossed my boundary, that's it, there's no going back, the end, right? Or suddenly, you know, you working on your boundaries with your family, but you go to the grocery store and the person says something that reminds you of your family, and then the cash register person, and then so you project all of this onto them, and you're like, don't talk to me that way, da, da, da. You know, so the overcorrection here with the boundary example is, you know, you felt like you didn't have any boundaries, and so suddenly you feel like you need to project and push and make them, you know, be in this way before. It could be one with, you know, maybe you want to clean up the way you're eating, right? You want to eat more whole, nourishing, healthy foods for you. And so that's here. Maybe you didn't realize it. And then the overcorrection could be, well, overnight, I'm going to become this giant fitness, amazing, whatever. And I'm going to run a marathon every day. And I'm going to do this. And I'm not even going to like look at sugar ever again. And I'm not going to, you know, this thing that's like, it's not the middle path, it's not reasonable, it's not what feels good for you. But again, the overcorrection, because the ego feels embarrassed or ashamed, or you get hyped up, you're excited, you're like, I'm going to do this different, I want to be different, I want to do this, right? So this is, again, the example of, you're here, you get some awareness about how you've been acting, and then instead of, again, taking the middle path to get there, letting yourself integrate these habits in a way that feels good for you, you either go like 0 to 100 with that, or with implementing that, or you think, I was on this end of the spectrum, now I'm going to go all the way over here, right? So just imagine like the pendulum swinging this way, okay? And this, another example of how the overcorrection can happen, is that maybe you learned something new that was really enlightening to you, and really thoughtful, and like, you know, it really changed your life, and you feel like really passionate about it. And so again, didn't know about it at all. So the overcorrection here would be, you find out this new information and you want to share it with everyone you meet, right? There's no one quite like someone who just found out something and wants to tell everyone they meet, regardless of the context, or, you know, thinking, is this the time or the place to share this? Doesn't matter, I'm just going to share it, I'm going to share it with whoever's listening, I'm going to share it with all this stuff, right? And I'm sure all of us, we've probably never done that, right? Okay, you know, I've done that, of course, I've been there, but all of us know that example of someone who they just want to tell everyone they meet about this thing that they suddenly discovered or thought or changed their life or whatever, which, like, again, good for them if they're passionate about something, if they want to do all this. But the situation I'm describing here, the overcorrection, is they didn't know it all, and then they just go like 0 to 100, and they want to share with everyone all the time, instead of being reflective and saying, who do I share this with, when, who's the community around this for me? You know, this isn't, again, to limit your sharing, but it's just being mindful of like, am I sharing just to share because I can't keep this information in and I don't have any processing, or I'm not grounded in myself, and instead I'm just projecting all that outward? Or is it something I genuinely want to share in these certain settings, in this particular situation? So with all of this, you know, we want to just think about, when you're correcting a behavior, or choosing a healthier behavior, or letting something go, you know, the pendulum could, for you to feel like you're in control, or feel like, again, to just kind of avoid dealing with some of the feelings, maybe the shame or the embarrassment that comes up when we realize it is time to change a particular behavior. You want to try and focus on the middle path, right? You want to focus on the gray area. You want to focus on, okay, if I was here, you know, and maybe you do need to go all the way to the extreme just to see what the other side is like, but you don't want to stay there, right? You want to find the middle ground. So maybe for the boundaries example, again, you had no boundaries, and then you're like, well, I'm going to have really, really rigid boundaries, and I'm not going to let anything in, and da, da, da. And that's fine, because maybe you need to practice that. Maybe you need to feel what feels good for you to kind of balance out this energy of like not having any boundaries before, right? But the healthy way, the middle way, once you've kind of worked through a lot of that, is the gray area, is in the middle, is, you know, I know what my boundaries are, but I can make some exceptions if it's someone who I have a lot of history with and who I know doesn't have ill intent for me, or, you know, this is my boundary, but in this particular situation, I can feel my guidance is telling me to do this thing instead of this thing, right? So just kind of moving away from the all or nothing thinking, the black and white thinking, right? The overcorrection from this to this to this, and just finding finding that middle path and giving yourself permission to hear any guidance or decisions you need to make based on what's going on in that particular situation, in that context, right? That's the most healing thing. We can have the set of rules and these few things in our lives, but this is the area that, you can, once you get a little more grounded and clear in your energy, you can have some more of that leniency with all of this. And then one disclaimer I do want to say, there are certain things for some of us where there is a time and a place to do all or nothing. Okay, so if that's the case for you, that's something you will know. Don't give your power away to me, this random woman on YouTube who you're watching your video. Okay, this is a time and a place for you to know when all or nothing is right for you. So I'm very open about this. I'm an addict. I'm in recovery for, over a decade. I've been sober, which is great. But for me, so obviously my all or nothing, I have no business drinking or doing drugs ever again, right? So this overcorrection for me is good, right? It could be, you have a non-negotiable in your life of I know I can't eat this particular food, or I don't want to eat this particular food, or I can't have relationship with this kind of person, or, in my romantic partner, this is a non-negotiable for me, right? So there are some certain situations where this all or nothing thinking or way of being can apply to people. And so again, if that's for you, you'll know it's your own resonance. It's what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But, so there is a time and a place for that, but this is in general, and we're talking about finding the middle path of how to be healthy, how to live calm, centered, clear in our day-to-day lives. And so just a few reminders, be mindful. This is a natural thing to come up. It is natural, even if it's, our boundaries, again, just using the boundary example, they change as we grow, as we have different values, we're in different phases of our life. So, if maybe you're a little bit here on the boundary scale, and then you need to be here or here, you need to move around. So it's a natural thing for this to come up, even if you felt like you dealt with it before, it's natural to change these things. Okay. And it's just, again, about being mindful of when you get into this all or nothing or overcorrective behavior. And again, finding the middle path, finding the gray area, and just being kind to yourself along the way. A lot of us have so many things. Again, we have an infinite lessons we can learn in one lifetime. And so all of us, just be kind to yourself, recognize the pace you're going at is right and perfect for you because it's your pace. You'll make mistakes along the way. A lot of this stuff is trial and error, is figuring out what works for you, figuring out what doesn't work for you. So again, it's just important to be mindful, to see what the possibilities are. And again, to not be like, okay, this is what it has to be, the end, I'm never changing ever again, right? So we just want to be mindful of the overcorrection and then turn inward and ask for guidance of, is this the right and best thing for me? Or is there another way that's more helpful? Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.